Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Shruti Mishra. We continue to bring you coverage from Web Summit Qatar 2025. Today we deep dive into one of the most captivating sectors for venture capital, space tech, with investment into VC-backed space tech startups touching $6 billion in 2024. The industry surely is on the brink of something monumental. With investors increasingly turning their gaze to the stars, the question on everyone's mind is space tech the next big bet for venture capital? And to help us answer that question, I'm now joined by Adam Niewinski, the co-founder and general partner at OTB Ventures. Adam, welcome to Startup Street. Like I just mentioned, in 2024, VC-backed space tech startups secured $6 billion in funding. What were the reasons behind this surge, and do you see this trend continue in 2025 as well?
Absolutely. So hello again, and great pleasure to talk about space tech. Yes, I do believe that this is the next big thing. And of course, it's probably hard to judge whether AI is bigger or space tech is bigger, because these are completely two different areas. But I would say equally important, because, AI will also help to develop new technologies and to grow our space, our presence in space. So the number for 2024, it's not that big.
Okay.
I believe it's going to be much bigger soon. And
how big?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
You have
Sky
different. No. You've got different reports from different consulting companies. I've seen, I think, 60 billion number from McKinsey. But the most important thing is that the world is changing, and we now see a lot of corporates starting to use space tech data. It used to be that space tech was mainly the area for governments. So the governments were funding space and were taking the advantage of data from space.
Correct.
Sometimes bringing it to society, like through GPS, navigation and communication. Then we had, like satellite TVs. Then we have, even more communication coming from space, Earth observation. But people were not really actively using data from space in Earth observation that much. Like us on a daily basis, we don't really use it that much. But it's changing right now.
Absolutely, and we'll delve into the use cases in just a bit. But this escalating US-China rivalry has been cited as one of the key factors that because of which we're seeing increasing investments in space tech. How do these geopolitical dynamics, impact your investment strategies in the sector?
Well, it's always been the case that when, some of the countries were competing against each other, it was pushing, the advancement. We've seen this with JFK in U.S. declaring that, they're gonna be sending people to the moon just because Russia just sent, the first Sputnik to space. Today, China, India, many countries are actively developing in space. And so US, Europe, and any other, I would say, important countries, important governments needs to do the same, because, you need to be in AI, you need to be in space. If you do not have your own launchers, if you do not have your own satellite communication, if you are not playing a part of this game, then you will be nowhere in 10 to 20 years' time, because, yes, space is going to develop. And it's not just for fun. It's not just for someone, to say, oh, we send people to the moon.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but it used to be not really commercially driven. Today
Absolutely.
It is.
It is. And, advancements in reusable rocket technology have brought down costs significantly. How do you view these developments impacting the overall, viability and the attractiveness of the space tech sector?
Obviously, driving costs down by tenfold makes the difference, because when we wanted to send a satellite back 10 years ago, let's say synthetic aperture radar satellite that sees through during the night, sees through the skies, and then such a satellite together for launch would cost probably 300 to 500 million US dollars per one.
Okay.
So think of a constellation of what, 4, that's like 2 billion. You know, few corporates and few governments could allow themselves to do something like this. To get today, with a fraction of that cost, both of launch, of a payload cost and the cost of a satellite, such a satellite, it can cost $25 million US dollars, the same quality, the same use case. And then you can have a constellation of 40 satellites.
Yes.
And the more satellites you have, the more frequency you have. If you have one satellite, you know, you can, for instance, make 1 day repeat orbit, meaning you can fly over the same place once a day, but only on a fraction of Earth, yeah, because, you know, it's like one orbit that you can cover. If you want to cover the whole Earth with one satellite, it would typically take you like 7 days. So revisit time, it's so rare that it's unusable.
All right. I also want to talk to you about how important is government's role, government's backing in your investment decisions. What role does government play in the long-term success of space tech startups?
It is still very important because governments have the capability of have a long-term vision and are able to support R&D and development, which will then spread for the whole economy. You know, like if there is a company which is building satellites or building rockets or doing other amazing stuff, technologically advancing stuff, now this brings a development for the whole ecosystem in a given country or in a given, you know, like economic zone. So this is not only benefiting, you know, from the education, from the R&D, but for the whole ecosystem. And investors are sometimes not as patient as governments. So it makes sense, you know, like for the governments to support hand in hand the private capital in the space tech developments by offering long-term contracts, long-term abilities to build new advancements.
Clearly, because it is capital intensive, there are longer timelines for profitability. But what I want to know from you, what strategies do you kind of have where you're mitigating the risk and also providing substantial returns to your investors?
So first of all, we are trying to pick the areas, the companies where we do believe the commercialization is actually within a few years' time, so within a few years' time horizon.
That's a conscious decision that you take.
So unless we can really understand who's going to pay for the service and when the service is going to be delivered, we wouldn't invest, you know, like so we like visionary founders. But, you know, like a vision without execution is just hallucination. So you need to have an execution and you need to have a commercialization within, you know, reach. And you know, and of course in space tech, you need to have a bit of imagination to imagine who's going to buy it in 2-3 years' time. But it cannot be, you know, like we wouldn't invest, you know, like in hotels on the moon just yet. It's just too far away.
All right. Tell us what sectors, what sub-sectors within space tech excite you the most?
Today we really are excited about in-space infrastructure and in-space economy. So we definitely believe our in-space manufacturing. And in order to do in-space manufacturing, there is, you know, like the whole ecosystem that needs to be built. For instance, you need to have a rendezvous system that connects in space. And the objects in space are moving with a huge speed, sometimes in complete darkness. So this rendezvous system, which allows to connect the two objects in space, needs to be super precise and of an amazing quality. You need to have a return vehicle. You need to have companies like Atmos that are parachuting from space products back to Earth, which are manufactured in space. And mentioning manufacturing in space, it's manufacturing without gravity. You can create completely new set of crystals, for instance, whether for pharmaceutical industry or, for instance, for fiber optics. These are completely new areas which we are just discovering, but can bring, you know, like great advancements for the humanity. And
manufacturing in space is something that is exciting you the most, I believe.
You know, like the whole in-space infrastructure, you know, like all this interconnectivity, you know, like it's an ecosystem and it's big and it's growing.
All right. Quickly, what are the challenges? You know, there are a lot of challenges that space tech sectors, space tech startups have, especially when they're scaling up. And what role can investors play in helping them overcome these challenges?
Of course, you know, like investors who've been investing in space tech companies for quite some time are already aware of some of the pitfalls. Yeah. So when you invested in a few, let's say, satellite companies, you already know what are, you know, like typical issues with launching a first satellite, how you can try, you know, like to decrease this risk. Yeah. But basically, I would say that still it's important, even in the space tech ecosystem, to try to be visionary and do not replicate what's already out there. You know, like being a follower. It's even more difficult than being a visionary, because being a follower, you need to be like 10 times better to make the difference. If you're a follower and you are bringing 20% more efficiency or 40% more efficiency, no one cares.
Nobody cares, yeah.
You really need to make a complete breakthrough, and completely breakthrough, this is being visionary. You know, like if someone is going to come to us saying we are offering, you know, like a rocket launcher which is going to be 40% more efficient, that's completely unattractive. You know, like you really need to come and say, okay, we have a completely new way of launching the rockets which is going to be 10 times cheaper, and then everyone gets, you know, like the attention.
Okay. How do you assess the regulatory landscape in the space tech industry, and what are some of the challenges startups face and try to navigate the legal and regulatory frameworks?
You know, like for me, the single biggest challenge today is space debris. It's, you know, like all the dirt and all the debris which is flying, and this is creating a huge risk for any player in the space tech economy, because whether you're launching a rocket or you are operating a satellite, you need to constantly check whether there is a debris or you are on the path of debris. If you are launching a rocket, you need the so-called the windows for launch are shorter and shorter. If you are operating a satellite, you need to constantly check whether there is on collision course and potentially maneuver the satellite. And if you maneuver the satellite, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and a lot of resources. So it's expensive. And it, you know, like at some point, you know, like this may actually prohibit us, worst come to worst, to really efficiently, you know, like use our space, because of the dirt that is going to be there. I believe it is something which is needed for all the governments and all the countries to unite and to try to protect the Earth, you know, just like we are trying to protect Earth, we need to protect the space.
Absolutely.
And sustainability, it's also important in space.
And on that note, it's time for us to head into a short break, but don't go anywhere as we continue our chat with Adam Niewinski on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Startup Street. We continue our conversation with Adam Niewinski, the co-founder and general partner at OTB Ventures. Adam, with the increasing number of private players that are there today in the space tech sector, how do you foresee a shift in market dynamics? How does the rise of private companies impact your investment outlook today?
We laugh the fact that space tech is going broader and broader. We are more than happy to see more and more investors coming to this space, or even more importantly, we see a lot of corporates, a lot of enterprises starting to use the data and to invest into space tech.
Sure.
And we believe this is an important milestone which is currently happening globally, which will only speed up the space tech economy. Just because, it's being dependent on one governmental client, it's quite tricky for an investor and for the company itself. Being, able to have, a broad commercial client usage, this is a completely different case, which will actually bring even more investors to space tech.
I wanted to speak to you about the commercialization of space exploration today. Are we seeing a paradigm shift in which space exploration is now approached from a business perspective?
It is, of course it is, and we see it on the multiple cases. We see the beginning of space tourism, and we see some of the hotel chains like Hilton trying to get into it. We see in space manufacturing and pharmaceutical companies getting very much into it.
Okay.
And we see all the other, I would say, industries which are trying, to take the advantage of the space tech advancements, think about the engines for the rockets, everyone want to use it for commercial planes. Everyone are trying, to think how you can take the advantage of all those advancements in space into our, I would say, regular life on Earth. And last but not least, the whole Earth observation industry. Today, all the, big insurance companies are looking into the space data.
Correct.
You cannot really think about proper insurance coverage or predicting, any crisis, any catastrophes on Earth without space tech data.
Yes, and picking up from what you just said, with the advancement in satellite technology and, of course, in data collection, how do you see this transforming industries like agriculture, climate science, and telecommunications as well?
Very good question. So agriculture, another great use case for Earth observation, but with a different sensor.
Yeah.
Like infrared, you've got already companies like Hydrosat, which are active throughout the world, which are monitoring the temperature on Earth with a 1/10 of the degree precision. So, and plants are reacting to a water stress with changing the temperature.
Yes.
So you can very precisely understand, whether it's too dry or you are wasting too much water. And wasting too much water is not only the cost, it's only you are using one of the precious resources, but it's also bringing the crops down. Up to 30% of lower crops can be because of too much water.
Sure.
So a precision watering is precision farming, increasing the efficiency of crops, but also saving a lot on the energy costs and on the resources.
All right. So looking ahead, where do you see the most demand for space tech technologies? Disaster relief, is that one big area?
It's I would say it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. It's agriculture, as you mentioned, telecommunication today, rather than putting a lot of, installations for GSM communication, I guess we'll be soon having all the internet and telecommunication from satellites.
Okay.
So it's telecommunication, it's agriculture, it's pharmaceuticals, it's tourism, it's insurance. It's understanding. You cannot really understand what's happening on Earth, from within.
Yes.
You need to look it from up there, from the skies. So any smart corporation these days are looking at the space tech data, are trying to embrace the space technology. It's not just, a science fiction movie.
Sure.
It's something which is happening and not taking the advantage of it. It's just being left behind.
Absolutely. You know, what would your advice be to startups, founders who are looking to enter space tech, and what advice would be to investors who are evaluating investment opportunities?
For the founders, definitely be visionary, like be brave, be bold, like this is a difficult sector. It's not easy, it's hard, but because it's hard, it brings some of the most talented people, and you can achieve a lot of breakthrough, not only like for your ambition, not only for commercialization, but also for Earth. And there is a lot of room for further development. It's like space tech is like the ultimate tech frontier, like it requires a lot of hardware innovation, a lot of software innovation. This requires a mixture of talent, but like the ecosystem, the economy of space, it's only going to be growing. We've been seeing this for the last 10 years, dynamic growing, and it's just the beginning because, as mentioned, like the corporates, the enterprises are just stepping in.
All right, I want to shift your focus to India. India's space program has made remarkable strides in the recent years. We've all seen the success of Mission Chandrayaan-3 and with Gaganyaan on the horizon.
Yeah.
How do you view India's space exploration opportunities?
I believe, like what's really amazing about those achievements, and these are really huge achievements, and the whole world was watching it. This is, like one of the most amazing things is the efficiency at which it was achieved.
Yes,
because
and the cost at which was achieved.
Yeah, doing an achievement by spending billions of dollars over 20 years' time, it's important, but it's not as exciting as doing, like a breakthrough with, a more, like efficiency, because this can only, again, try to stimulate the imagination of what can be done with even more money, with even more talent. And again, like such achievements are only bringing, new visions and new ambitions, like to the founders, to the society, to the government. So I guess, like with such an achievements that India did, it's not only that India will push even more, but it will also stimulate other countries to think, okay, like it seems that with a, like bit of bravery, with a bit of vision, with a lot of technically talented people, it's absolutely needed, but some of the countries are also having some of those technically, advanced people. You can also achieve this.
Yes.
So India has shown, like to all the other countries, that this can be done, and this can be done reasonably, meaning efficiently. Just overspending is not the way to go. It's not the way. That's the perception of the investors, obviously. So we love it. We are keeping fingers crossed for the new achievements and for bringing, more examples like this, to the rest of the world.
All right. With that, I'll have to wrap up our conversation. Adam, many thanks for your time, and it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. Stay tuned for more news and updates from the entire team. Goodbye, and many thanks for watching.